Deep in Siberia, newly discovered cave paintings have revealed towering, human-like giants, making researchers question what the Earth's past was really like. Could these mysterious figures suggest that giants once inhabited our world, long before recorded history? The discovery opens the door to a forgotten chapter of humanity, leaving us to wonder, who were these beings and what happened to them? From a cave paintings underwater to the craziest depictions of early humans, these are the craziest cave discoveries. 1. The Denisova Cave gives us a peek into the ancient world. A long time ago, the Denisovans, an ancient group of humans, roamed the area. They were different from us, with unique traits that make scientists wonder about their lives and how they survived. Denisova Cave was home to various human species and even early modern people. It's famous for cool discoveries like tools and bones that suggest these groups shared the same space at different times. The craziest and probably most unique humans to live in this cave were probably the giants. Well, that is, if they existed. There have been paintings and engravings found in the cave showing what seem to be giant-like human beings. Although it's more likely these represent mythological beings or symbols important to the people. 2. Giants weren't the only people living in this cave. The Denisovans are probably the most famous group to have lived in Denisova Cave, and they're even named after it. They were around 285,000 to 25,000 years ago, with evidence suggesting they lived in Denisova Cave for a long time. Which one is cuter? Like for the dog, comment for the cat. Though their exact height isn't clear, they probably had strong, sturdy bodies with large teeth, dark skin, hair, and eyes. Denisovans were closely related to Neanderthals, and the two groups even had kids together. One famous hybrid, Denny, had a Denisovan dad and a Neanderthal mom. Modern humans also mixed with Denisovans, and today people from places like Melanesia and Australia have some Denisovan DNA. The first Denisovan fossil, a finger bone from a young girl, was found in 2008 in Denisova Cave, and scientists identified it through DNA in 2010. Since then, fossils have been found in other places like China and Laos, showing that Denisovans lived across Asia. But that wasn't all. 3. This cave also had the oldest bracelet in the world. The Denisova Cave bracelet gives us a look into the lives of the Denisovans. This bracelet is thought to be one of the oldest known pieces of jewelry, dating back around 40,000 to 50,000 years. The bracelet was made from chlorite, a green rock that wasn't found nearby, so it probably came from over 200 kilometers away. This shows that it must have been important to the Denisovans. The bracelet is about 7 centimeters wide and less than 1 centimeter thick. It has a small hole, likely made using advanced tools, which might have held a leather strap or some other decoration. What makes the bracelet really special is the craftsmanship. The Denisovans used techniques like high-speed drilling, grinding, and polishing, skills we didn't think people had back then. It's so delicate that experts think it was probably worn on special occasions, maybe by an important person. This discovery, along with other items like tools and jewelry from the same cave, shows that Denisovans were pretty skilled and had complex cultural practices, much like early modern humans. While the Denisova Cave only had a few paintings of giant human-like creatures. 4. The Lovelock Cave had actual giant bones found inside it. In 1911, 2 miners exploring a cave in Lovelock, Nevada, were on the hunt for bat guano to make fertilizer. Instead, they stumbled upon a crazy find: over 40 human skeletons. But these weren't ordinary skeletons. Some of them were massive, measuring up to 8 feet tall. People were fascinated, especially since many of the skeletons had red hair. It was unlike anything they'd seen before. But that's not all. The miners also found huge artifacts like sandals that would fit a 9-foot-tall person and giant scissored pieces of clothing. Over time, other big skeletons were reported in the Wild West, making people wonder if a race of giants once lived there. Some even tied it to old stories in the Bible about giants living on Earth. The local Paiute tribe has their own story. They say their ancestors fought red-haired giants called the Saidukar. After years of fighting, the Paiutes trapped the giants in Lovelock Cave and set it on fire, ending the battle. While there's lots of instances of giant bones being found in caves all over the world, 5. There's also evidence of a very small human species. In 2003, scientists discovered bones from a new kind of human called Homo floresiensis in Flores in Indonesia. But people started calling them hobbits because they were only about 4 feet tall. These tiny humans lived around 60,000 years ago. And what really surprised everyone was that they weren't small because of a disease or anything. They were just naturally that size. The island of Flores is far from the mainland, and it's always been surrounded by water. That's why scientists were confused about how these hobbit-sized humans got there. Before, it was believed only modern humans could cross oceans. 6. Forget about bones. What about giant crystals? The Cave of Crystal in Mexico was accidentally discovered by miners from Industrias Peñoles in 2000 while they were working on a tunnel. Inside, they found gigantic crystals, some of the largest in the world, which seemed to glow in the light. The cave is about 980 feet below ground and is now famous for its huge selenite gypsum crystals. These crystals are massive, with some measuring up to 37 feet long and weighing as much as 12 tons. They formed in water rich with minerals, which flowed through the limestone rock millions of years ago. The high temperatures and mineral-rich waters created the perfect conditions for the crystals to grow over nearly 1 million years. The cave is extremely hot, with temperatures reaching 136 degrees Fahrenheit and almost 100% humidity. Because of this, researchers wear special cooling suits to spend short amounts of time inside. These conditions are due to the nearby magma beneath the cave, which helps maintain the heat needed for crystal growth. 7. And let's not forget about literal mummies. We've heard of all sorts of things in caves at this point, but mummies aren't one of them. The Kabayan mummies are part of history, found in the Kabayan area of Benguet province in the Philippines. These mummies show how the Iloy people honored their dead, especially important figures like tribal leaders. The practice started around 200 BCE, but it became really popular between 1200 and 1500 CE. The way the Iloy mummified their loved ones is unique. Instead of wrapping them like in ancient Egypt, they used a method called fire mummification. Before someone died, they would drink a salty solution to help dehydrate them. After they passed, the body was cleaned and placed in a special chair over a fire to help remove fluids. This drying process could take weeks, and the body was even exposed to tobacco smoke to help with preservation. Once mummified, the bodies were buried in caves along with their belongings. Special rituals were performed to honor them. Sadly, these mummies now face problems from climate change and humidity, which are making them deteriorate. 8. There's also the mysterious structures built by the Neanderthals. Back in the early 1990s, they discovered 2 big rings made out of broken stalagmites in the Bruniquel cave. They were basically long rock formations that grew from the ground. These rings are made of over 400 stalagmites and sit about 336 meters from the cave's entrance. Some of the pieces are pretty huge, between 4 and 7 meters long, and the rings themselves are up to 6.7 meters wide. Scientists have figured out that these structures were built about 176,000 years ago, long before modern humans arrived in Europe. That means Neanderthals made them. No one is quite sure what the rings were for, but some think they may have been used for ceremonies or as places where Neanderthals gathered for special events. 9. Some ancient scrolls were also found in a cave. Archaeologists in Israel discovered fragments of a very old scroll with verses from the Bible from a desert cave they call Cave of Horror. This cave got its name because back in the 1960s, about 40 human skeletons were found there. These people likely passed from starvation during a Roman siege. These pieces were written in Greek, but the name of God is still in Hebrew. The scrolls were discovered in caves near the Dead Sea. in a place called the Judean Desert, which was once used by Jewish rebels in the 2nd century. These people were hiding from the Romans after their revolt failed. The verses are from the books of Zechariah and Nahum, written around the time of Christ, and they haven't been found in over 60 years. The scrolls talk about important events, like the rebuilding of the temple and a future king. Finding a scroll like this was super out of the ordinary 10, and so was this ancient item. The Cockno stone, located in West Dunbartonshire, Scotland, is a really big rock with prehistoric carvings. It's about 42 by 26 feet in size and covered with over 100 cups and ring marks, which are small, round carvings with circles around them. These carvings were made a long time ago, around 5,000 years back, during the Neolithic period. The stone was first noticed in 1887 by Reverend James Harvey, who saw how important it was for archaeology. No one knows exactly what the carvings mean, but some people think they could be ancient markers for territory, or maybe even related to the stars. The name Cockno comes from a Gaelic word that means place of little cups, which matches the look of the stone's markings. In 1965, the stone was buried to stop people from vandalizing it. It stayed covered for decades until it was dug up again in 2016. Researchers from the University of Glasgow used modern technology to scan the stone and study it while also involving the local community. While this cave had lots of interesting ancient artifacts, 11. It can't compare with the art in this cave in Italy. The Grotta della Dara, located on Mount Pellegrino in Palermo, Sicily, is famous for its ancient rock carvings that are over 10,000 years old. These engravings, made during the Upper Paleolithic period, show both animals and humans and are considered some of the best examples of prehistoric art in Italy. The carvings include pictures of animals like wild cattle, horses, and deer, which were important to the people back then for food and supplies. But what really makes this cave special is a scene showing 9 human figures standing in a circle around 2 other figures in strange poses. Some experts think this might show a ritual, like a sacrifice or an initiation ceremony. Others think it could be an acrobatic performance or a dance. 12. There's also the Chauvet Cave. The Chauvet Cave in southeastern France is home to some of the oldest and most amazing prehistoric art in the world. Discovered in 1994, this cave holds over 400 pictures of animals that are about 30,000 to 32,000 years old. The cave's walls show many animals like horses, mammoths, reindeer, and even predators like lions and bears, which are rare in other cave art. One cool part of the cave shows 2 woolly rhinos fighting, possibly over mates or territory. There aren't any full human figures in the cave, but there are some Venus shapes, which are carvings of body parts that symbolize fertility. You'll also find handprints where ancient people blew red pigment over their hands, leaving a mark on the walls, almost like a signature. The artists used smart techniques to make their drawings stand out. They scraped the walls clean, engraved some lines into the rock, and even used shading with charcoal to add depth. 13. Other than animals, people also painted ancient humans. The Magura Cave in northwestern Bulgaria is famous for its ancient wall paintings, which are some of the best examples of prehistoric art in Europe. These paintings are about 8,000 to 10,000 years old and show what life was like for the people who lived there during different times, including the Epipaleolithic and Bronze Age. The cave's artwork shows many different scenes, like religious ceremonies and hunting. One painting, called the Fertility Dance, likely shows a ritual meant to celebrate fertility. Another scene, the hunting ceremony, tells the story of how people hunted for food. There's even a painting from the Bronze Age that looks like an early solar calendar made up of black and white squares, which might have been used to track the seasons. The artists used bat guano, bat poop, to create these long-lasting images. There are over 750 different pictures in the cave, which include human figures like dancers and hunters, animals like goats and birds, and cool geometric patterns like zigzags and circles. 14. But the craziest thing is this cave's ancient carvings. Royston Cave in England is a cave known for its medieval carvings. Discovered by chance in 1742, the cave's walls are covered in carvings that mix Christian symbols with some that might have pagan roots. The carvings show many important Christian figures. For example, there's Saint Christopher, who is known for helping travelers, and Saint Catherine, who is shown with a spiked wheel, symbolizing her martyrdom. You can also spot St. George, likely holding a sword, and there are even two different scenes showing the crucifixion of Jesus. One of these images may even feature King Richard I, also known as the Lionheart. Weirdly enough, not all of the carvings are religious. There are non-Christian symbols too, like a carving of a horse and a figure called a Sheila Gig, which might represent fertility and be tied to pagan traditions. Experts think these carvings were made in the 14th century, but nobody knows exactly why. Some believe the cave was used for religious gatherings, possibly by groups like the Knights Templar, just like the UK. 15. Africa is also taking notes. The Sand People, also known as the Bushmen, are among the oldest indigenous cultures in southern Africa, with a rich history that dates back tens of thousands of years. They were the ones that made some pretty impressive art on the Cederberg Mountains in South Africa. There are over 2,500 rock art sites in the area, making it one of the most important spots for prehistoric art in the world. The paintings are about 5,000 to 8,000 years old, giving us a glimpse into the culture and spiritual life of these ancient people. Most of the paintings show animals like elands and kudu, which were a big part of the Sands hunting lifestyle. These animals weren't just food sources, they had spiritual meaning too. Some of the artwork also shows human figures doing things like hunting or gathering, and sometimes they're in groups, which might represent social or ritual gatherings. Other paintings include figures that are part human, part animal, which could be connected to shamanistic beliefs and spiritual journeys. One famous site is the Stadsal Caves, where there's a painting showing rows of people facing elephants, probably as part of a ritual. But if you thought this was crazy, 16. Wait until you hear about this underwater cave. Back in 1985, a diver, Henri Koska, accidentally found a hidden underwater cave with over 400 pieces of artwork. It was later named the Koska Cave, probably after the diver who ended up finding it in the first place. What makes this cave special is that its entrance is underwater, about 121 feet below sea level, which makes studying it pretty tricky. Inside the cave, the artwork includes around 200 animals, like bison, horses, seals, and even penguins. These pictures give us a peek into the types of animals that lived during the Upper Paleolithic period. There are also human figures, handprints, and geometric shapes, showing that the people who created these had complex cultural and spiritual lives. The artists used natural pigments and techniques like painting and engraving. They even made hand stencils by blowing pigment over their hands, pressed against the cave walls. Sadly, rising sea levels are threatening the cave, so researchers are working hard to digitally record the art to preserve it for the future. Since the cave is so hard to visit, a full-scale replica has been made in Marseille. 17, but the La Skeel, on the other hand, is still in perfect condition. The La Skeel cave paintings in Somaliland near Hargeisa are some of the oldest rock art in Africa, dating back to around 3,500 to 2,500 BCE. Discovered by a French team in 2002, these ancient paintings offer a glimpse into the lives of the people who lived in the region thousands of years ago. Most of the paintings show cattle, especially African aurochs, which are large, wild ancestors of today's cows. The cattle are often dressed in fancy ceremonial outfits with plastrons around their necks, and sometimes even covered with robes. This suggests the animals were important to the people who made the paintings, possibly even worshipped or seen as symbols of fertility. Along with cattle, the paintings also show humans, likely herders, as well as other animals like giraffes, antelopes, and dogs. The paintings are known for their bright reds, yellows, and ochres, which have lasted thousands of years thanks to natural pigments and the protection of granite overhangs. 18. Adamgar rock shelter paintings have also existed for thousands of years. The Adamgar rock shelters, found in Madhya Pradesh, India, are important for their ancient rock paintings. These shelters were discovered in 1922 by Manoranjan Ghosh and have about 18 shelters, with 11 showing visible art. The paintings are really old, dating back to the Upper Paleolithic and Mesolithic times, and they give us a glimpse into how early humans lived. Most of the paintings show animals like oxen, deer, monkeys, and horses, and some of them feature hunting scenes where people are chasing after animals with bows and arrows. There are also battle scenes with humans holding weapons, and some figures riding on horseback, which suggests that horseback riding was important in their culture. The colors used in the paintings come from natural pigments like red, dark brown, and white, probably made from local minerals. The drawings are simple, focusing more on the action than on accurate details. For example, in shelter number 6, there's a clear battle scene, and shelter number 10 has paintings from different periods layered on top of each other, showing how their art changed over time. 19. Just like the Tadrata Carcass. The Tadrata Carcass region in southwestern Libya is a super cool place, filled with amazing rock art that tells stories from long ago. This UNESCO World Heritage Site has mountains and unique rock formations like mushroom-shaped rocks and tall granite cliffs. The artwork here goes way back, dating from about 12,000 BCE to 100 CE, and shows how people lived and changed over thousands of years. You'll find all kinds of human figures in the art, people hunting, dancing, and taking part in rituals. These images give us clues about what life was like for those early humans. There are also lots of abstract symbols and shapes that might have held special meanings or been part of spiritual beliefs. The rock art can be grouped into different periods. For example, the Roundhead period features stylized human figures, while later art highlights domesticated animals as people started to rely more on farming and herding. The Tadrat Carcass area was once a green savanna, full of wildlife, before it turned into the desert we see today. 20. Kind of like the Borneo. The Lubang Jeriji Saleh cave in East Kalimantan, Indonesia, is known for having some of the oldest cave paintings in the world, dating back around 40,000 years. Some hand stencils in the cave might even be 52,000 years old, which is super impressive. This shows us that people in Indonesia were creating art way earlier than we thought. Inside the cave, you can see all kinds of cool paintings. One standout is a huge picture of a banteng, or wild cattle, that's over 1.5 meters wide. It even looks like it's been speared, hinting at a hunting scene. There are also human figures and lots of hand stencils, which are created by blowing ochre paint around hands pressed against the rock. This bouquet of hands is believed to have special meaning. Researchers first explored the cave in the 90s, but it was a team led by Pindi Setiawan in 1998 that really discovered its treasures. 21. Tassili Nadja also has a long history. The Tassili Nadja region in southeastern Algeria tells us a lot about the early Sahara inhabitants and their connection with animals and their changing ways of life. The rock art dates back to different periods. During the Roundhead period, from about 8,000 to 6,000 BCE, artists created simple figures with round heads, showing daily activities like hunting alongside wild animals, such as giraffes and lions. Then, around 4,500 to 4,000 BCE, the Bolivian tradition kicked in with scenes of herdsmen and cattle, showing that people were starting to settle down more. It was the same with Wat Lot Sawat. The Wat Lot Sawat cave in Thailand is part of a larger network of caves filled with ancient paintings and carvings. Inside the cave, you'll find all kinds of animal drawings, like deer and elephants, which show what these early people hunted and how they understood their environment. There are also cool human figures that seem to be doing activities like hunting or taking part in rituals. These figures have unique poses and clothing, hinting at the culture and beliefs of the time. The artists used natural pigments from local materials to make bright colors like red, black, and white. They painted directly on the rocks or carved their designs into the stone, which helped the art last for thousands of years. What other species of humans are there that we've never discovered? Are there any more mysteries hiding in caves